Welcome back. You're watching The Money Show with me, Kavita Thaplial. The National Pension System, or NPS, is a voluntary defined contribution retirement savings scheme designed to enable the subscribers to make optimum decisions regarding their future through systematic savings during their working life. But given the variety of options available under NPS, it can get complicated for ordinary investors to get the most out of their investments in NPS. And so on The Money Show today, we'll help you understand how to get the most out of your NPS investments. Let's welcome on board Nirav Karkera, Head of Research, FISTA. Nirav, good evening and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining in. NPS, as we all know, during just before 31st March, just gets in vogue, in demand, because people realize it as being one of the best investment instruments, not only to park in their money for retirement, but also tax saving, which is a very huge benefit. But apart from that, let's dissect this particular investment instrument and let's break this down for our investors to understand if at all they are considering it for tax saving or want to align it with their retirement goal. How can one make use of an investment option like NPS to save maximum amount of tax? Let's start with this.
Right. So, Kavita, that's a brilliant question to open with. I feel, when it comes to tax saving, NPS is a widely known product, but not often discussed. So, right at the outset, NPS is in fact one of the most efficient products out there. It ranks along with the other efficient products that really help you extract the maximum tax benefit while using the product to generate wealth. So NPS similarly, if you want to extract the most out of it, while you can use it, as a deduction under your standard limits under Section 80C, that is the 1.5 lakh rupee limit, NPS is probably the only investment product that offers an additional deduction of 50,000 rupees over and above the 1.5 lakh deduction offered by Section 80C. So, if you have been utilizing Section 80C through a variety of other products, you can always add in or top up another investment of up to rupees 50,000 into NPS. And if there is any gap, you can still invest into NPS and cover that gap in Section 80C and ensure that you are utilizing the 1.5 lakh plus 50,000. That is a total of 2 lakh rupees as a deduction. So while you can do all of it in NPS, but it always makes sense to prioritize the other ones that qualify and exhaust as much as possible in ATC and then fill the remainder through NPS. So it really helps you fill those gaps.
Now, let's go to the second step. Assuming one has, marked down to NPS as one of the tax-saving investment instrument to be done this time. But what about the schemes? How can we select the schemes? What are the type of schemes available, and what kind of investor should be looking at what kind of a scheme?
Absolutely. So the schemes are primarily, there are a variety of schemes, I'll get to that. But firstly, there are 10 odd asset managers or pension fund managers that offer to manage your pension funds or your NPS, corpus for you. These are privately owned entities that manage it for you. Now, within this, you have the option to craft and construct your own asset allocation, right? You can choose between asset classes of equity, corporate bonds, government securities, and very recently, trending alternative securities. So you can choose a combination of these asset classes and build your own sort of a product very custom to your need. And any of these combinations will be managed by the asset management company that I spoke about earlier. So this flexibility actually helps you tailor your NPS investments in line with your primary asset allocation or your allocation strategy at a higher level. Also, most other products are either skewed towards equity in entirety or a fixed income sort of a construct in entirety. But NPS, the beauty about NPS is you can there's a lot of fungibility in choosing the asset allocation. So let's say you're a conservative investor, with a fairly decent time horizon, obviously, but you're a conservative investor. You do not want to undergo the volatility that equity brings in, or at least you want to keep it to the minimal. It makes sense to increase your exposure towards government securities, which are relatively less volatile. followed by corporate bonds, and then have a minimal allocation towards equities. At an overall level, this will reduce your portfolios or investments volatility. On the other side of the spectrum, if you're a really aggressive investor, you might want to go up to the maximum possible limit of, let's say, 75% into equities and split the rest into corporate and government securities, that way. And for investors who are, not very sure, they can choose this option that NPS offers, wherein they can choose an auto selection model, wherein depending on the risk appetite, uh, the model will allocate into those asset classes and dynamically manage those asset classes as you progress in time. So there are three primary categories like conservative, moderate, and aggressive, and it auto selects the asset classes. So that takes off the burden of selection and asset allocation off your mind if you are not really chasing any particular or specific target allocation. So these are the schemes that are there. And while selecting, like when we go through these funds and we have to select, I feel the first step begins with deciding your asset allocation. What is it that you're chasing? And then choosing the asset managers that you believe will be the right fit. For instance, there could be a certain asset manager that has exhibited exceptional track record in managing equities as an asset class, but probably
Exactly. So that
not
was
so
my
much.
question, because looking at the scheme performances, how have these fund managers performed or fared in last 3 years time? If I just want to analyze that.
Yeah, so if you actually look at the past 3 months, and in fact more than 3 months, I feel probably I'll talk a little bit more from a 3 year standpoint, which will give a whole
I
lot
think
more
3 years is a
visibility.
better time frame in case one has a
Yeah.
complete equity scheme. Yeah.
Yeah. In case you have a complete equity scheme and you look at it from a 3 year standpoint, you'll see that most funds on a 3 year CAGR basis have performed exceptionally well because the markets rebounded. But you will see specific funds like, let's say, probably a Kotak Mahindra pension fund or an ICICI Prudential pension fund or an HDFC pension fund do, perform really well on an and would have delivered on an average 20 odd percentage CAGR, which is very good. I would say it is exceptional, but also an outlier case that doesn't imply that the next 3 years are going to be. But this is the range in which these very good equity pension fund managers have been performing. For an equity specific portfolio, Kavita, if you want, we could talk
Nirav, if you
about.
want to analyze the portfolio allocation of these fund managers and say for equity schemes, what kind of portfolio allocation or exposure do they have?
So most of these funds, tend to have a large cap orientation as we speak, but that is not because of the mandate restricting them as much, but because they have decided to, build a large cap oriented portfolio, and it makes a whole lot of sense at this point in time, the way the markets are. So they have a large cap oriented portfolios and a well diversified portfolio. Most of them have been limiting sectoral exposure, so the sectoral spread in most of these portfolios are pretty well diversified.
Given that we have two type of choices, active and auto, how many times can we change our pension fund managers in a year?
In a year, you can change a pension fund manager only once, but you can change the scheme twice, and you can change your allocation 4 times. So, but pension fund manager only once.
All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about the kind of accounts which are offered, which is tier one and tier two. What's the importance of each of these accounts?
So tier one and tier two are both a part of NPS schemes only, but to open a tier two account, you must mandatorily have a tier one account. The tier one account is basically the NPS account with the lock-in, which has all the tax benefits. You can claim tax deductions. Then you need to convert it to annuity. You get that exemption. You gain an exemption on lump sum withdrawal of up to 60%. All of this tax breaks, tax exemptions plus tax deductions are applicable to only tier one investments. Tier two investments are voluntary. They don't really have a lock-in. You can use it as a substitute of, almost any other, packaged basket of securities. Like, for instance, the closest parallel would be with a mutual fund. So you can, think of it that way. So it is a voluntary investment product. You can decide your asset allocation. The only difference is you won't be getting these tax breaks. There is not going to be any lock-ins. Probably the only guys who benefit from a tax standpoint here are central government employees who can avail tax deductions on investments into tier two.
Nirav, how can private and public sector employees invest in NPS? Are there different rules categorized for them? And also, from an NRI's perspective, can they invest in NPS?
Yeah, so there are, obviously both government employees and private organization employees can invest into NPS. The distinction happens when it comes to claiming deductions on investments made into the tier two of NPS, wherein central government employees are allowed to claim a deduction therein. Apart from that, the process remains largely same for them. For employees, either central government or private sector employees, there is a slight tweak when it comes to claiming tax deductions for self-employed people, where it can go only up to 20% of gross income, wherein for in case of employees it can go up to 10% of basic plus DA. That's the slight nuance difference between self-employed and employees. Now coming to NRIs, NRIs can in fact invest in NPS schemes. Basically any NRI who is between 18 to 70 years of age and has complied with all relevant FEMA and RBI regulations and complies with all existing KYC norms, which basically entails you having a valid Aadhaar card, PAN number, PAN verified bank account, and you're between the ages 18 to 70, an NRI can very well invest in NPS schemes.
What's the age criteria for
Between
investment?
18 to 70.
18 to 70 years, you can have your investments, and the lock in is till 60.
Yes.
So after 60, you can either withdraw or you can stay invested. What is the withdrawal procedure?
So you can either withdraw or stay invested, but you don't. If you don't withdraw at 60, it auto renews up to the age of 75, and you will have to redeem after 75. The process is fairly straightforward. You log in. So today everything's online and it's very convenient. You just log into the NPS website and you place a redemption request, and because of the rules the way they are, you most probably you will land up redeeming 60% in lump sum in a normal situation and converting the rest 40% into an annuity product. You can choose any annuity service provider of choice, and that's how you can get your money and ensure that your annuity comes in post maturity.
It will be taxed if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, the income from annuity will be taxed. Yes.
All right. Talking about the mode of investment, what is the minimum amount one can actually put in? What is the criteria, if at all there is one?
So no criteria per se. I'd say so it is slightly different for tier one and tier two. In tier one, you must make at least one investment during the year to keep the account active. Tier two does not entail any such mandatory investments through the
Minimum amount of
financial.
investments in tier
Yeah.
one?
In tier one, it would be 500 rupees, and for tier two, 1,000 rupees.
Can we do an SIP?
Yes, you can.
All right. Talking about NPS as a retirement tool, which is great if one really understands and have place in their portfolio to put it in. But can this be the only investment instruments for retirement?
Probably not. Like with any other instrument, no instrument in itself is sufficient to plan for retirement, and there are a variety of other. Although this is a pretty good starting point for investors who are very new to various asset classes, you can start with NPS because of the tax break also that it gives you. But eventually, you may have to start looking beyond NPS, and probably the very next logical natural progression would be in the line of mutual funds, and then progress as your understanding and your requirements become more and more unique. There are a variety of products that you can explore.
About the partial withdrawal rules?
Yeah, so partial withdrawal rules, you can partially withdraw it after completing 3 years. You can withdraw up to 25% of your contributions, but that would be only in the case of specific notified events. For example, an illness, a disability, some your children's marriage, purchasing a property, so on and so forth. There are a prescribed list of things for which you could apply and partially withdraw, and you could do this only up to three times during your entire tenure of holding an NPS. So this is, you can withdraw partially after completion of 3 years, but it can be only up to 25% and under such circumstances. 25% of your own contribution, not the entire corpus.
All right, Nirav, I think that will be all. Thank you so much for this NPS classroom today that we had with you. On
Thanks a
that
lot.
note, let's take a quick break, and post that, let's get your portfolio queries solved by Firoz Aziz.